Knowing featuring Fred Hammond.
Oh, man.
Okay, we're back. Thoughts?
So I really thought one of my biggest issues with religion is the judgment that people throw on it, and him kind of calling it out. Kind of was like, yeah, you know what? Like, I was judging him for this whole thing, but half of me wants to say, you know, okay, I hope that he is doing this sincerely and that his life really has changed and he is trying to do everything for the best, and that he's not just using gospel music to get back with the black people that he lost with
That part.
That's so I'm trying,
that part.
That is where I hope that he is actually doing this because he really does believe God and not because of what happened last year.
That's the same conversation I had with my brother.
Yeah.
I think we probably gonna have that conversation.
Well, and I'll say I really wanted to like this song because I'm a Fred Hammond fan, like ridiculously, unapologetically a Fred Hammond fan, and I was like, it didn't catch me, it didn't hit me. I got nothing. It was nice. I will say though, like Michelle, I was like, I'm glad he mentioned the judgment, because sometimes that is something we as church folks do, and we will certainly call Kanye out, but not call somebody else out who's sitting in the pew next to us. Yeah. And again, you have to be careful how you call folks out, right? Like it should always be done in love. It shouldn't be done, you know. I'm also with Michelle in that I sincerely hope for all the things that he has found his way and is walking this walk and running this path with Jesus, and he's not just doing it to be pandering.
Yeah.
Like that would make me real sort of irritated, because what you're not going to do is offend me as a black person and then try to get in my good graces by pretending that you love my Jesus. Like, that ain't gonna work.
So I guess to touch on that one, when he came out the gate, he with the Jesus Walks, right? That was like over 10 years ago. So he came out the gate already radically different than most artists that were in that lane. I think his original self would have been this had the sequence of events hadn't happened with his mom, and then he never really recovered from that. Also, too, just dealing with fame. He's a human being, you know what I mean? So I've never been famous before. I've always wanted this. Now I have everything that I want. That is, you know, that's my journey now to him now kind of coming full circle back to where he was in the beginning. So I think even like when you look at his discography, when it's all said and done, it's going to be really cool, because you're going to see it bright, and then it's going to have this dark sector for like a long time, you know, and then it brightens up at the end. As far as the judgmental thing too, though, it's almost kind of like the longer you've been a Christian, it's like you're a senior on like God's basketball team. Yeah. And then you just hate on all the freshmen that's coming in. Because they might be better than you and they might take your spot. So you don't really work out with them. You don't want to like give them too much game, because they might take your spot. So that's kind of...
That's a fun analogy. Yeah.
I love that.
Because it's like some people do, they forget how they got to
Yeah.
where they are, right?
Yeah.
So that's a real tricky dynamic. We can never forget how we got to God. And I think sometimes the people that forget how they got to God also don't share that story.
Yep.
So then you think that they always been super Bible thumping.
So what happens when you're a public profile? Like when you're public, so all of your mistakes. So, I think that's the part.
That's a fair point.
So the part for me that kind of resonated is, again, this is the one for me that's content driven, right?
Yep.
This is the whole judgment piece is 100% P. And again, our pastor often talks about the church being a hospital, right? And that's the place where wellness is supposed to take place. But the moment you raise your hand and say you need help, the church is off the first place to push you away. And I struggle with this whole idea of something Yvonne said earlier. I think is 100% like, so what if he is pandering and doing, like, ultimately his accountability is between him and God, right? So like even using the example of, well, should I give money to the homeless man because I know he's just gonna buy alcohol? That's not on me to decide, right? So I struggle with us sitting in seats of judgment at time, making opinions based upon what we hope somebody's intentions are, where the reality is, if we had to lay all of our stuff out on the table.
Well, also too, because like even like you said, he's not gonna play with my guy. So you
Right.
possessed.
Mm-hmm. But I don't have exclusivity to that.
Yeah.
I will say though, I'm gonna push back a little bit on you, though, Rob.
Yep.
Because I think there is you said, so what if this is pandering?
Yeah, that's
Because my challenge is this: we have a responsibility with the gospel.
Absolutely.
And especially, and I'm gonna do something a little weird here, but especially those of us who stand up in the pulpit on Sunday, we have a responsibility with the gospel. We have to carefully handle that word. And Kanye has kind of put himself in a position because he has no. I'm not saying he's calling himself a pastor. But what I'm saying is Kanye has an influence. And so people are going to listen to this just because it's Kanye, and they may never listen to Seth because he says he's a minister. They may never walk into a church, and that's okay because we are certainly thinking about different ways to reach people and different people who will reach people that we would never touch by bringing them in on a Sunday morning. But we still have to be responsible with the gospel.
Agreed.
So
I agree.
if he has to carefully handle this place and space where he's in right now because of the number of people that are going to have their eyes on him because he's him.
Which is why I say, please pray for me. Which is why I think he's saying, please pray for me.
Because I don't want them to miss God and the gospel because they so focused on Kanye.
Which is why I'm saying he's soliciting the prayers. Please pray for me. Please pray for me.
I think multiple levels to this. One, I'm like, he was talking to me in that song because the timeline of events that happened with Kanye wearing the MAGA hat, saying slavery was a choice. Then you pop up Sunday service, do a Sunday service, Coachella, Easter Sunday.
That's our biggest thing.
Yeah, that's our Super Bowl, man. Nah, but and then talking about I was skeptical. I'll be honest, I was skeptical of Kanye. I was skeptical because a few things. One, knowing Kanye being self-absorbed, being Kanye is the illest of all time. I made Jesus walk, so I'm never going to hell. That Kanye.
Yeah.
So, and then to have Sunday service, and then you brought out the pandering, Michelle. If you just put this out there, if you look at all the churches he has done the Sunday services at, they have all been black churches. He hasn't gone to Elevation. Not saying he won't. He hasn't gone to Elevation. He hasn't gone to Lakewood. He's been to New Birth in Atlanta. He's been to Fellowship in Chicago. Historically, these are like mega churches and churches that are doing things in the community. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to save this to the end, but I guess I got to jump in.
Let it go.
I was skeptical, but then I had to check myself. And I was drawn to a scripture in Philippians chapter 1. The context is Paul is in prison. The Apostle Paul is in prison. And he's writing his letter. He's like, you know what, man? Everybody's asking me about how do I feel about all these people preaching the gospel. And you have people preaching the gospel out of sincere motives. You have other people preaching the gospel just trying to capitalize on me being in prison so they know the Apostle Paul, the man, he's out the picture now so I can, make a come up. And Paul finally says, he's like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what their motives are, if it's sincere, if it's self-serving. All that matters is that the gospel's being preached, and I'm gonna cheer that on. So that's what my feeling was.
Do you
Would
feel
that be
that way?
Philippians 1:15?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you feel that way with those the mega churches that have the pastors that have their own private jets when they're there's these pastors that are preaching that it's easier to have a camel walk through the eye of the needle than a rich man get into heaven, and then he's flying to his jet. And they're taking from poor people. Like John Oliver did this thing where they kept sending money to this pastor, and the pastor was like, "Great, you are loved by Jesus. If you send $10 more, Jesus is going to love you anymore." Isn't that where it crosses the line, though, where it's using Jesus? I get that. Great, that is out there, but in the detriment to other people.
Yeah.
So that's where I struggle with, like, Kanye, you know what? If you're getting your spiritual advice from Kanye, that's your own, obviously I hold ministers and pastors and priests at a higher level. But I really do hope that listening to that judgment part, though, I was like, okay, I won't judge you now, but I want to see change. LeBron's
She's not reserved. my rights.
I'm holding it. LeBron's
I'm not putting that card down, but it's in my hand.
And giving money, you know, and doing what he can for people. Kanye, let me see what you can do.
Yeah.
You know, I see Kim over there trying to help people in prison. Are you helping as much? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I want to know.
So I will say,
So-
She wants proof.
I want,
So-
which I do see. He, you know, but not just this year. Not when you're on
Yeah.
probation. I want to see you.
so I just want to put out is Sunday service is looked at as a music ministry. So I just want to be so Kanye isn't putting himself in a position as a minister. He uses this as a music ministry, which is why he's also positioned himself with pastors that can deliver the word. Because part of the feedback that he was getting is, if you're going to call it the service, it has to be both components, and that's the why. He also wanted to make sure that he wasn't in the center of this, and he's been aligning himself with people that can bring the message. So Sunday service is a music ministry that taps into what he believes his gifts are. Go ahead, Vaughn.
I'm curious as to with what Kanye did with the album. What is the
So we staying on the song. We're
Okay.
gonna stay on the song. Don't go to an album thing yet.
So with this song,
I'm gonna change the word.
right? What's the worst that can happen from that? From people, you said people following him, and you know he has a lot of influence. What are we actually afraid of happening?
That they're following Kanye, not the
Yeah.
God that he says he's proclaiming.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah.
Is that
And
Kanye's responsibility to do? Because he's deflecting. He called it Jesus is King and gave it all to him. So if you still miss that,
You
and
gotta keep
focus on
deflecting. You gotta keep
the
deflecting
message,
because people fall into hero worship.
Yeah,
I see
exactly.
this within actual churches, right?
Exactly.
They get so tied up in their pastor, they forget Jesus. Pastor
Exactly.
go on vacation, they lose their mind, right?
Exactly.
So, and they too have the responsibility to continue to say, this is who you need to be looking at. You need to be looking at God. I'm your pastor. I'm the dude. I'm the concierge. I'm not the one. So they have that responsibility.
Okay.
I don't say he has any less responsibility. Just like if I came to somebody and was like, hey, listen, they ask me about church or Jesus or whatever, I'm going to share it with them. But I want to make sure that they're not just following along with what Johnson's doing. I'm going to point them to what, if they've asked me, this is what I believe, I'm going to point them to that.
To scripture,
I'm
right?
pointing to scripture because that's what I say I believe. And if they looking up to me, that's awesome that you think I'm awesome, but I'm gonna fail you every time. So we need to keep looking back over here.
Okay. So we talk a lot about in churches and stuff, a lot of the miracles and stuff that Jesus did, right? A lot of the cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that also overshadows the stuff that Jesus was actually saying, because we're looking at and we're following the fact
The
that he walked
miracles.
on water,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not why or the purpose. Why did I do that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think we just as humans do that anyway,
Oh, we get excited about it, Shiny. We get excited about it.
because it's like easier to worship something we can see than
We have comments,
nothing.
and then I know Harry has some as well. So I'm gonna go with Harry's. He said having a non-believer compare the abuse of the past to Kanye's "The Straw on the Camel's Back." I'm glad I listened in before the judgment part. Then he put an emoji that was a sad face. So I think for him, I don't want to make any assumptions. So Harry, if you have specific clarity that you want to add to kind of what made the emoji, please add. I don't want to interpret. Go ahead, Kia.
So Christine goes back to, I think it was the song after Water,
Okay.
that you commented God's plan will prevail. So Brittany says, this song made me feel convicted in a good way. I appreciate him asking, what have you been hearing from the Christians? Because it's so true. Matthew 7:3-5 talks about pointing out the speck of sawdust in others' eyes while you leave a whole plank in your eye. Justin says, favorite song on the album, so relatable and quality flow. That first somebody pray for me touches my soul. He's simply saying, instead of judging me for my wrongs and my past, pray for me now and who I am.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I don't mean to cut.
Yeah.
I think part of what makes this song unique is that aside from Fred Hammond being on it, Fred Hammond being a legend, an OG in gospel music, Fred Hammond, I believe, experienced some of the similar things that Kanye is experiencing.
Mm.
You know, Fred Hammond had a different sound with Commission. He had a different sound with RFC. And people was like, man, this ain't gospel music. And so he was getting that same judgment. And Fred Hammond is like, he's an elder.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes back to being a senior on the hoop team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have that seniority. Now you can bring somebody up with him. He's like, you know what, Kanye, I went through the same thing you're going through. And I'm going to put my hands on you. I'm going to guide you through this. And he's like interceding for him. This whole song is about intercession. He's just Kanye saying, somebody intercede for me. Somebody look out for me. And Fred Hammond's like, you know what, I got you.
All right, so we're about to go to song 10.